This is video number 80, and the title is The Cars. There have been many vehicles over the years. There have been cars and trucks and vans, although I've never owned a convertible. The first vehicle I wanted to put on the road was the old 48 Chevy pickup. I used it to pull Dad's station wagon when it got cold and it didn't start. The truck needed some welding and a floor replacement on the passenger side over the battery box. It was under the floor with an access panel. I had the royal blue paint and a bolt of leopard skin material for the dash. The only immovable force against it was Mom. Need I say more? My first car was given to me by my Grandpa Perry. It was a 1954 Dodge four-door sedan. The model was a Meadowlark with a green body and a white roof. The engine was a 232 cubic inch six-cylinder. He actually gave me the car a few months before I was 16. The body was in tough shape, but after a few weeks and the help of a friend and some rivets and paint, I thought it was ready for inspection. I didn't have the proper equipment for a good paint job, only a brush, but I had wheels. My English teacher, Mr. Fenwick, busted me one morning in homeroom. Mr. Fenwick wanted to know if I was a magician. How else could I go to school in the morning with the green car and go home in the afternoon with the blue one? You see, there was only enough daylight after school to allow me to paint one side at a time. While inspection was running out, I took it up to Stevens Garage in Lennoxville. They were the local Ford dealer, too. Dad got his latest station wagon there. It was a 1961 Ford Galaxy wagon. Dave the mechanic knew us well. He put the Dodge on a lift and started to look around with his trouble light. After a while, it came out from under the lift. Dave asked if I drove very fast with that car. Well, I kind of lied and said no. He said it was a good thing. All the body bolts are rusted off. The only thing holding the body on was the steering column. I thought the car handled really well. The body was reacting differently to the frame. I couldn't tell the difference. Well, I drove it until the inspection ran out, and Dad sold the car to a neighbor for $5. Of course, that wasn't the last I saw of the old Dodge, but that's another story. I saved my money for a season and went back to Stevens. They had just the car for me. It was a 1962 Ford Falcon Futura. It was white with gold interior, leather bucket seats in front with a center console. It had a 170 special inline six-cylinder. It got 98 to 100 miles to $1 worth of gas. Of course, gas was price range from 19 cents to a quarter a gallon. I paid $600 for the Falcon. I had the Falcon all through high school, working at the heavy equipment school, the peat bog, and a short time on the power pipeline. I had traded it in for a 66 Impala two-door hardtop with a 283. I had the Impala only about 3 months when I got my draft notice. I signed it over to Dad. He took over the payments. Dad ran that car until the bumpers actually fell off. It had a ton of miles on it. It was only 18 months old, and I paid $1,800 for it with only 18,000 miles on it. I think Dad got about 300,000 miles out of that. Not bad. The next car in my life belonged to my first wife, Louise. She had a brand new 68 Impala Super Sport, buttercup yellow with a black vinyl roof. It had black interior with bucket seats and a U-shaped drag bar shifter. Of course, it had a 327 engine. It was a great car. I went into the Army not long after she bought that car. It was a beauty until she rolled it and bent everything on it but one hubcap. We knew an Olds dealer in Honesdale. He found us a 65 Delta 88 four-door sedan with low mileage. It turned out to be the car with which we traveled back and forth to Virginia, and I was still driving it during my start at P&G. When I sold it, it had 180,000 miles on it and still looked and ran great. We bought a second car as Louise was working too. She bought a '69 Dodge Dart Sport. She only bought cars because of the color. The Super Sport because it was pretty yellow. The Dart because she liked the blue. She had no idea what she was buying. It had a slant six and was a good car. We sold it to her parents after their old DeSoto with hydro shift gave up the ghost. Over the years, there was a '74 Ford pickup and a Dodge Sebring sedan I bought from Lou for a few bucks. I ran that car for a while. There was a '69 Chevy Nova in there somewhere too. The best vehicles I've had since were the '83 Dodge Ram Charger, a '90 Mark III custom van, and a '98 Ford pickup. I now drive a 2011 Tundra. Good truck so far. The only problem was a deer hitting me and taking out the right fender and headlight. Lots of vehicles and lots of miles. My best friends in high school had a couple dandy cars too. One night Jimmy and I were coming back to his house from Tunkhannock. We turned off Route 6 onto Lithia Valley Road. We bounced over a sluice pipe bump just before the creek bridge. The old Chevy didn't feel right. Jimmy said it was steering funny. It was about a mile back to the house. When we got back there, we looked under the car. The rear end assembly had broken loose and twisted. No wonder it steered funny. Another time we were riding Jimmy's old Dodge or DeSoto on our way to Clark Summit. Just before we entered Clark Summit proper, somewhere in the vicinity of Club Diane, there was a heavy joint bump. When we went over the bump, the whole front bench seat fell through the floor. We were doing about 40 miles an hour. I was about 50 pounds heavier than Jim. All at once I was looking at the glove box with my chin between my knees. Jimmy was raised up and all hunkered over. He had to reach down to hang on to the wheel, and his feet were no longer anywhere near the pedals. Flames and sparks were coming up around me. The seat frame was grinding off on the road. The only thing holding the seat up was the drive shaft. Fortunately, Jimmy could reach the shifting lever on the column and throw it into neutral. We coasted to a stop along the edge of the road. There wasn't much frame left on my side. We found some sticks long enough to put under the seat and hold it up so we could drive home. That was the end of that ride. At least I know my butt is good for flames and 40 miles an hour. My two boys had some interesting experiences with cars. One night, not long after the four guys in a Subaru deal, we saw some headlights and a red strobe up on the same hill. Brian's girlfriend lived out that way. The red strobe wasn't us, so it had to be a state trooper. I hoped Brian wasn't involved. No such luck. About 2 weeks before this, I had spent $400 replacing all the hoses, belts, and did a complete tune-up on Louise's car. It was a Plymouth Diplomat, I think. A nice mid-sized car that she used for work at the Pink Apple and hauling the kids to wrestling tournaments in 5 states. The trooper and Brian were standing along the road. Then I spotted the car off the road and in the bushes. It also had a telephone pole laying on top from hood to trunk. I noticed the intersection sign laying there too. Brian didn't get hurt, just scared more than anything, thank goodness. He told us a deer ran across the road. I walked the edge of the road for about 100 feet. Deer usually plant their feet in the cinders on the edge before they jump onto the road. There were no tracks. I let it go and figured the truth would eventually come out. The body shop was only about a mile or so from us along Route 6. The accident was at 1:30 a.m. I was at the body shop at 6 a.m. to get our stuff out of the car. The car was gone. The body shop guy told me the insurance company released the car for scrap and it was on its way to the scrapyard in Allentown. Let's just say that was my first experience with the body shop insurance racket. I had another with repair to my van. The skin on the door got peeled off on a side swipe. They got $8,000 for the passenger door. My 98 pickup was dinged up pretty good in the 99 tornado in Cincinnati. The guy told me he'd have it in 10 to 12 days. He had it 11 weeks. He tried to pull stuff on me too. Bad spot in the paint that you wouldn't see if you just walked around and didn't look close. The cargo light wasn't hooked up. The safety light in the door fell into the door. And all the bulbs for turn signals, parking lights, and backup lights all blew out within the first 2 weeks. It seemed they get extra hot when there's a coat of paint on them. There was more. That's enough for here. The last car interaction belongs to Dennis. He was in Wilkes-Barre riding with his friend Jerry. Jerry had a restored 66 Fairlane hardtop with factory yellow paint. It was a beauty. They got broadsided and half climbed over by a monster truck. Louise called and told me Dennis was in the Wilkes-Barre General Hospital. On the way down, I could not remember how to get there, so I stopped in at the Dallas police station. It was about 2 a.m. About 2 weeks before, someone walked in and shot the desk sergeant for some personal reason. I walked up to the locked glass doors and held my badge against the glass. The officer on duty was facing away. I knocked on the doors and scared the heck out of him. He jumped about 3 feet. I apologized for scaring him and asked directions for the hospital. When I saw Dennis, he wasn't injured with any broken bones or cut up, but I could tell he got his bell rung. Louise asked me if I thought they'd keep him. I asked Dennis, "What month is it?" His answer was, "November." I told her he'd be there about 3 days. It was July. He and Jerry had concussions, but they recovered just fine. Jerry's beautiful 66 Fairlane was totaled. Well, that concludes a summary of our experiences with cars. Once again, folks, I wish everyone all the best.